My name is John Davis. I'm a 26-year-old single man. I've been working at a company called Johnson Trading, which Mr. Johnson built from the ground up, for almost 3 years now. While I've gotten used to the job and find it enjoyable to some extent, the human relationships can be quite a hassle at times. Hey John, work starts at 9 a.m., so be here right on time. You're coming in too early. That morning, I arrived at the office 30 minutes before the start time, and my colleague, Bill, who is 3 years older than me, said that to me. Bill, as I mentioned the other day, I have a heavy workload, and if I don't come in early, I can't finish it all. This week is 0 overtime week, so we can't stay late, right? But that doesn't mean our workload decreases. I replied, Mr. Johnson has designated the third week of every month as 0 overtime week, so no matter the reason, we can't work overtime during that week. The office lights are turned off automatically, so it's physically impossible to stay late. Instead, it's an unspoken rule that employees come in early to finish any outstanding work. I told you before, I'll handle the work you can't finish. Didn't you listen to me? Bill said to me in an irritated tone. Sure, I remembered him saying that the other day, but I couldn't let Bill handle the documentation for my clients. Bill makes a lot of mistakes, and even if I asked him, I'd end up having to review and correct his work, which would ultimately increase my workload. However, if I were to argue that, it would turn into a troublesome argument, so I had no choice but to say, got it. It was completely unreasonable. Moreover, Bill saw my response and said, even if you say got it with a dissatisfied look on your face, it doesn't convince me. When will you understand what I'm saying? This is why incompetent employees are such a problem. As usual, his remarks were full of sarcasm, and I was already exhausted from the morning. Just because he's my senior, he thinks he can say whatever he wants. I understood why Bill was trying to prevent me from coming in early. Both Bill and I are currently in the same department, and our department head, Ms. Henderson, is known as a beautiful manager in the company. Bill is somehow very attached to her. Ms. Henderson, I've taken care of this and that for you. Also, I'll prepare the materials for the AK company meeting. That day too, I frequently heard Bill talking to Ms. Henderson. Bill is always around Ms. Henderson, eagerly assisting with her work. AK company is John's client. John can handle it, so you don't have to, Bill. Ms. Henderson responded to Bill. In my heart, I thought, nice one, Ms. Henderson. I don't want Bill to take over all my work. I'd appreciate it if he helped me out of a genuine desire to assist a colleague, but that's not the case with Bill. He only takes over my work halfway to look good in front of others and steal the credit. There have been several times in the past where he later claimed, I handled that deal, not John, even though he didn't contribute much, so I don't trust him anymore. If he has time to interfere with others, I'd prefer he did his own job properly. But maybe he can't handle his work as he wanders around bothering other employees and desperately tries to interact with Ms. Henderson, resulting in very inefficient work. Most of the employees in our department who see his work think the same way about him. He looks like a charming guy at first glance, but it's such a waste. However, employees from other departments who don't know Bill's true nature often say that he and Ms. Henderson look good together, and there are even rumors that they are dating. Seeing how Ms. Henderson usually brushes off Bill, I don't think they're dating, but our company has a no-office romance policy. So, if they were dating, they'd definitely keep it a secret, and I can't say for sure that they aren't dating. I once accidentally overheard them calling each other by their first names in the break room. Here's how it went. When I was about to enter the kitchen to pour hot water into my cup noodles during lunch break, I saw Ms. Henderson and Bill there first. I overheard Bill saying, Nora, you always put milk in your coffee, don't you? I wondered, who's Nora? But then quickly heard Ms. Henderson's voice saying, yes, but Bill, you always drink it black, right? I almost blurted it out, but managed to keep quiet so they wouldn't hear me. At that moment, I almost believed that their dating theory, because why else would Bill call Ms. Henderson by her first name? But then, thinking rationally, I doubted that the beautiful, smart, capable, and kind Ms. Henderson would be dating the sly Bill who steals credit for others' work. It seemed odd to decide based just on them using first names. Knowing Bill's character, I thought they didn't suit each other at all. One day, John, can I talk to you for a bit? Are you free now? As I was working on my computer, I heard a woman's voice behind me. When I turned around, it was Ms. Henderson. I responded nervously, "Oh, yes, I'm free." I was curious about where we would talk, and then she said, "Sorry, we can't talk here. Could you come with me?" With an apologetic look, I replied, "Yes, no problem," and closed my computer, standing up from my seat. "Sorry to interrupt your work," she said as she walked out to the hallway, down the stairs to the floor below, and into a small meeting room in the corner. She opened the door, invited me in, and then quietly closed the door behind us. I was anxious, wondering, what's this about? "Please take a seat," she said, pointing to a chair. I sat down, far from relaxed, waiting for her next words. "About what I wanted to talk about," she began, and I swallowed hard for some reason. "I want you to be my assistant manager," she said. I was so surprised, I blurted out, "What?" Then quickly corrected myself. "I'm sorry. I was just surprised." "Do you not want to?" she asked, watching my reaction. I quickly responded, No, I would be honored." Ms. Henderson looked relieved and said, "Thank you. I need your help because I've been overwhelmed with tasks lately." I suggested to the higher upus that it would be great to have someone assist with paperwork, and they agreed. Hearing that, I responded, "Of course, I'm honored to be the assistant, but it seemed like Bill was doing that role before. Aren't you going to ask him to be the assistant?" Nora replied, "Yes, Bill has been trying to help with my work, and I appreciate it, but he makes a lot of mistakes, so it doesn't really lighten my load. That's why I decided it was time for a formal assistant." I instinctively said, "I understand," and then quickly added, "I'm sorry. That was presumptuous of me." Ms. Henderson said, "It's okay. I know Bill often takes over your work forcefully, and you've been struggling. I'm really sorry about that. Bill isn't a bad person, just a bit clumsy." I felt a bit conflicted because, while she was affirming me, she was also defending Bill. But I understood that it was part of her job to support all employees. But then I remembered the incident in the kitchen, the part about Bill calling her by her first name. Before I could decide whether to say anything, the question just slipped out of my mouth. "Are you and Bill close?" I was surprised at myself for asking something so direct to my boss. But at least I didn't bluntly ask, "Are you dating Bill?" I felt a bit proud of myself for at least trying to be tactful. "What do you mean by close?" Ms. Henderson asked. When asked that by Ms. Henderson, I hurriedly apologized. "No, I'm sorry for asking such a weird question. Please forget I asked that." Ms. Henderson seemed to understand and said, "I know there's a rumor among employees from other departments that Bill and I are dating, but we're not. I'm not hiding anything or lying. It's true. I'm sorry. That's private. It's fine. It's got nothing to do with work." I apologize for asking such a personal question. Ms. Henderson then laughed and said, "Oh no, don't really doubt me. I'm not seeing anyone right now." I screamed in my heart that there was no way such a beautiful woman could be single, but I thought it would be rude to pry any further. So I quickly shifted back to the main topic. "Anyway, I'm sorry. If it's okay with you, I'd like to take on the assistant manager role. I'll do my best." Ms. Henderson also returned to the topic, saying, "Yes, please do. Thank you. I appreciate it." And the matter was settled for the time being. The next day, after confirming all the announcements during the morning meeting, Ms. Henderson casually informed the sales department staff at the end. "Also, we've created the role of assistant manager. It's an official position to help streamline the department's operations. John will be taking on this role starting today, so please be informed. Now, let's get to work." The morning meeting ended without any issues, but about 30 minutes into the morning work, Bill approached me. "Hey John, what's the deal? Are you picking a fight with me?" His voice was angry. I thought this was bad, but I figured I had to get through it somehow. "Oh, a fight? What do you mean?" I played dumb. I knew Bill wanted to be Ms. Henderson's assistant and was upset that I officially got the role. I figured that's why he was mad, but it couldn't be helped since the boss decided it. "Don't play dumb. Are you looking down on me?" Bill shouted at me. But at that moment, Ms. Henderson, who had been out, came back. So Bill stopped shouting and silently glared at me. "What's going on? Is something wrong?" Sensing the odd atmosphere, Miss Henderson asked both Bill and me. Bill stood up silently and said, "I'm going to the restroom," and left the room. After Bill left, Miss Henderson asked me again, "What's going on? Is something wrong?" I didn't think it was anything serious, so I replied, "It's okay." Miss Henderson looked worried but quickly switched gears and explained, "Actually, I have something I'd like you to do right away, John." She then explained the report that needed to be submitted to upper management by tomorrow. I listened seriously, finished my client work immediately, and worked on the report, finishing it by the end of the day. I had anticipated that Bill would be more hostile towards me because I became the assistant manager. I had been dealing with him before, so I knew it would get worse, but I reminded myself that such things are part of being a company employee. However, contrary to my expectations, from the next day on, Bill didn't harass or pressure me at all. On the contrary, he even said, "John, I know you've got more work now, but hang in there. I'm rooting for you." It was so strange that it made me feel uneasy. But well, I figured it's better to have work go smoothly than to be harassed. I stopped worrying about Bill, and about a month passed rather peacefully. One day, Miss Henderson was nowhere to be seen since the morning. I thought she might be out sick or had an urgent matter, but her desk had a thermos with a drink and some writing tools, indicating she was clearly at work. If it were a careless employee, they might leave their thermos from the previous day or their writing tools out. But Miss Henderson is meticulous, so she would never do that. I had something to confirm about the documents I took over from her, so I waited for her to come back to her desk, but even by late afternoon, she hadn't returned. I called and emailed her company phone, but there was no response, so I got worried. In the end, I didn't see Miss Henderson by the end of the workday, so I decided to confirm what I needed to the next day and went home first. When I got home and was relaxing a bit, my phone buzzed. Huh? A call? I glanced at the screen of my phone on the table. To my surprise, the screen displayed Ms. Henderson. We usually communicated with our work phones during work hours. However, we had exchanged personal phone numbers and messaging app contacts for emergencies after work. Up until now, even in emergencies, she had only sent messages, never called. So I was surprised to get a call from Ms. Henderson and answered the phone. "Hello, John. I'm sorry to call at this hour. I felt I had to tell you this today," Ms. Henderson said in a serious tone. "Oh, what's going on?" I replied, wondering if it had something to do with why I hadn't seen her all day. "First, to get to the point, I think I'm gonna get fired." Ms. Henderson said that. I never expected to hear such words, so I blurted out, "I'm sorry. That was rude of me. I was just too surprised." I quickly corrected myself. "I'm sorry. Today, from the morning, I was called by the manager and talked to in another room. In the afternoon, I spoke with Mr. Johnson in the CO's office. It seems I violated some rules. Then it made sense why I hadn't seen her all day. A rule violation? I can't believe you do such a thing. Of course, I don't remember doing anything like that, and I've always been diligent at work. I think it was just bad luck." Miss Henderson's voice trembled, and I heard her sniffle on the phone, as if she was crying. "Miss Henderson, I was at a loss, and felt I needed to know why it had come to this. Could you please tell me what this rule violation is about?" I asked, but she just kept crying and wouldn't talk about it. I had no choice but to stay silent on the phone. "I'm sorry. I can't tell you the details. I know it's strange to call without being able to tell you, but I thought it would be rude to suddenly quit without telling you. Thank you so much for being my assistant all this time. I don't know who the new manager will be or if they'll have an assistant, so I can't tell you what will happen to you starting tomorrow. I'm really sorry for being such a powerless boss," Ms. Henderson said slowly. I thought there was nothing I could say when my boss said that. "Well, I'll hang up now. I'll come to the office tomorrow to sort out my belongings, but I don't think I'll be working anymore. So I can't confirm the work I asked you to do. I'm so sorry for being so helpless," Ms. Henderson said. I almost gave up and thought I had no choice but to hang up, but then I spontaneously said, "Ms. Henderson, we've been working together all this time. The relationship between a manager and an assistant is like that between a CEO and a secretary, right? Please, tell me everything. I won't tell anyone, and I don't know if I can solve it, but maybe I can do something more than you handling it alone." I can't deal with you quitting like this. At least, as a favor to me, please explain it properly," I shouted. I respected and trusted Miss Henderson, not only as a boss, but also as a person. So, leaving in such an unsatisfactory way would leave me feeling uneasy. I didn't think that such a farewell would fade away with time. "John," Miss Henderson called my name and fell silent. She was probably hesitating. I suggested, "Can we meet and talk now?" Then, after a moment of silence, Miss Henderson said, "Actually, there's a rumor that I leaked confidential information to you, which then got out of the company. Of course, I know that's not true, so I was going to take responsibility to avoid dragging you into it. I didn't tell you because I thought you would feel responsible if I did, but you would never leak anything, so this is a false accusation. Don't worry, everything will be fine if I take the fall. Mr. Johnson and I have already settled on this." I was shocked. Why is such a rumor going around? What's going on? What information was leaked and to whom? When I asked that, Ms. Henderson replied, "It seems that SF Corporation, an overseas company we deal with, is connected to a big politician, Mr. M, who resigned over a corruption scandal. Mr. Aden, the president of Aden Corporation, a domestic company you handle, apparently knew about this. They think the information could only have leaked from me to you, and then from you to Mr. Aden. With no evidence, it's hard to clear our names. Then I should quit. It would be less of a loss for the company if I, a regular employee, left rather than you, an efficient manager. I'll resign." I said this seriously. Of course, I know nothing about any leaks. It's true that Aden Corporation was my client, but I never talked directly to Mr. Aden. I only dealt with Mr. Gibson, their sales rep, and I never discussed such matters with Mr. Gibson. Besides, I know nothing about SF Corporation or Mr. M, I added. "I know. Only I should know about SF Corporation, so there's no way you could. That's why I don't suspect you at all. That's why I should be the one to get fired," Miss Henderson said. I wasn't convinced, so I suggested again. "It's hard to convey everything over the phone. Can we meet and talk?" But Miss Henderson said, "No. If it's known that we met outside the company, it would look even more suspicious. Even this call is risky, but I couldn't just leave without saying anything to you. I just wanted to let you know I'm quitting." Miss Henderson had a point. As long as the phone wasn't tapped, no one would know what we discussed. But meeting in person could be seen by someone and would be risky. "I understand. Thank you for talking to me. I'm embarrassed that there's nothing I can do, but at least I understand the situation now. I'll contact you if anything comes up." I said this and hung up the phone. The next day, I went to work nervously, but my colleagues acted as usual, not knowing anything, which was a relief. Miss Henderson's desk was cleared of her water bottle and stationery, and she was nowhere to be seen. Her personal items were still there, so it didn't seem like she had packed up to leave for good just yet. Is Miss Henderson off today too? She wasn't here yesterday either. Is she sick? My colleague Max asked me. He probably thought I knew since I was Miss Henderson's assistant. Well, I don't know. I gave a vague answer. Really? Even the assistant manager hasn't been informed? That's concerning. Max said this and then walked away. Miss Henderson is beautiful, competent, and kind, making her the object of admiration for the male employees. I thought that many employees were worried because she hadn't shown her face for 2 days. Just then, someone tapped me on the shoulder, and when I turned around, it was Bill. "What? Why are you here?" Bill asked me. For a moment, I thought it was the usual case of Bill making snide comments when I arrive early to work, but then I realized I had arrived 10 minutes before work started that day, so there should be no problem. "What do you mean? It's still a weekday, so of course, I'm at work. Today is Friday, right?" I replied, and Bill said, "You're fired, right? When are you gonna stop coming?" I felt a sense of unease and said, "Huh," as I pieced together everything that had happened in my mind. I then decided to confront Bill. "You're the one who framed me and reported it to the boss, right?" My guess was spot on. "The manager and Mr. Johnson were furious, right? As your colleague, I couldn't overlook your information leak." Bill responded. I decided to play along to get more information from Bill. No matter what I say as a regular employee, it's useless, right? "Bill, you made up lies about me and told the manager and Mr. Johnson, didn't you?" I figured it out because I knew you didn't like me. I said this, pretending. Bill then said, "That's right. You're pretty sharp. You've always been a nuisance to me. I'm glad you're finally leaving. I'll say anything, even lies, to get rid of you." I confirmed again. "So, you told the manager and Mr. Johnson that I leaked information?" "That's disappointing," Bill said. "That's right. Do you understand the power of a colleague now?" I pretended to be disappointed, left the room, and ran to the restroom. In a stall, I checked my phone to see if the conversation I had secretly recorded was saved. It was recorded perfectly, so I immediately attached the data and sent a message to Ms. Henderson. "Ms. Henderson, I found out who framed us. It was Bill. I recorded proof." I sent such a message. Soon, I received a reply from Ms. Henderson. However, the reply was shocking. I know. I couldn't believe my eyes. While looking at the message, I inadvertently said, "Huh?" out loud in the restroom and panicked. Did Miss Henderson know that Bill had set us up? Until a few minutes ago, I had proudly thought of myself as a great detective who had solved the case. But when the victim says they knew the culprit all along, what am I supposed to do? Am I the victim here? No, at this point, it's Miss Henderson who will have to take responsibility and leave the company. I was utterly confused. Then I received a second message from Miss Henderson. "The audio data is very helpful. Thank you. Let's talk now with the three of us." I was even more confused about what Miss Henderson was thinking, and my head was full of question marks. "Talk with the three of us. Where are you, Miss Henderson?" I replied. Then she answered, "In the CO's office." I had no idea what was going on, but I asked, "Where are we going to talk?" Then Miss Henderson replied, "Let's talk in the CO's office." A few minutes later, I was in the CO's office with Miss Henderson and Bill. Of course, Mr. Johnson was there too since it was his office. I felt a lot of tension, thinking things had gotten serious. I could see that not only I but also Bill was nervous. "Confess. I want you to apologize in front of Mr. Johnson and John." Bill. In the silence, it was Miss Henderson who broke the ice. I was surprised not only that Miss Henderson spoke first. "John, did you tell Nora and Mr. Johnson about our conversation earlier? I can't believe you recorded it," Bill said, ignoring Miss Henderson's request and blaming me. "Bill, did you listen to what I said? I told you to apologize immediately. You did something that obviously deserved to be recorded. You tried to crush a capable young employee. This is a significant loss for the company, and I didn't know you were the culprit from the recorded audio. I suspected you from the beginning because the only person who could have had access to this F Corporation's information was you, who had acted as a proxy at my client's meeting." Miss Henderson said, "You call him a capable employee? What are you talking about? He's nothing but a nuisance who gets in my way." Bill said that. Hearing those words, Mr. Johnson sighed deeply and opened his mouth. "Really, Bill, I knew you were emotionally involved with Nora, but I'm disappointed to see it's this bad. Just give up and tell us everything." With that, Bill's expression changed from frustrated to resigned. "Fine, I'm done hiding it. Yes, it's true. I'm still obsessed with Nora because I developed feelings for her in high school. Nora was the school pop star, so I couldn't confess my feelings before graduation. I never expected her to join the same company, and I saw this as my chance for romantic revenge," Bill revealed. I was surprised. "What? Ms. Henderson and Bill were classmates?" I asked. "Yes. I got into college on my first try, while Bill took a year off, so we joined the company a year apart, but we're the same age. We didn't make it public because I was his boss. Bill always used polite language out of respect. I wanted to protect him, so I thought it would be easier if I took the fall and got fired. But after hearing that audio, I realized that was wrong. Since it's all Bill's fault, I'll let Mr. Johnson handle it," Miss Henderson said. That's why they were using their old nicknames in the break room, I realized. Then Bill started talking again. Things got messed up after John joined the company. Nora started favoring John, and I got pushed aside. So, I thought everything would be fine if John wasn't here. Miss Henderson quickly counted. "I gave Bill tasks that matched his skills, but I couldn't trust you with assisting my work because you made too many mistakes." I silently agreed. Bill often insisted on doing my tasks, resulting in frequent mistakes, which was really annoying. I can't ignore it when personal feelings interfere with work like this. Bill, this isn't school, it's a company. You can't prioritize who you want to work with or who you like, Mr. Johnson said sternly. Bill hung his head, finally reprimanded by Mr. Johnson. I could somewhat understand how Bill felt. Meeting the girl he had a crush on in high school again as a working adult, and seeing her shine in the workplace, wanting her approval so badly that he tried to bring down his colleague. Ideally, he should compete fairly without using dirty tricks, but I could sense the weakness that led him to do otherwise. Well, I get your personal feelings, Bill, but you knew about the SF Corporation and politician, right? So, you tried to pin the leak on John, didn't you? How did you even know about it in the first place? Mr. Johnson questioned Bill. Before Bill could answer, Ms. Henderson recalled something. When I was busy, he went to negotiate with this F Corporation on my behalf. So I think that's when he found out, Ms. Henderson said. Exactly. The person in charge at SF Corporation reminded me to keep it confidential, so I asked for details. The person was just talkative, Bill replied. And I remembered something too. Got it. You also went to Aiden Inc. on my behalf, didn't you? Did you tell Mr. Aiden about it then? I asked Bill. The CEO held his head and sighed deeply again. To him, it didn't matter whose fault it was. The fact that an employee leaked information was the real problem. Then Bill answered, I didn't tell Mr. Aiden. We exchanged glances. Don't lie. You've been cornered this far. Just give up and tell us everything, Ms. Henderson said firmly. Seriously, I'm not lying. This time it's true. I don't gain anything from this, you know. I just thought that since I had the information, I might as well frame someone annoying in the company and make it look like they leaked it. Bill said, I don't know what to believe anymore. I can't trust you, Ms. Henderson said, disappointed. Mr. Johnson and I felt the same way. Bill, whether you told Mr. Aiden or not, you framed John here. I believed you, and if it wasn't for just a bit of luck, we would have lost a valuable employee like Nora. If Nora had quit, it would have been a huge loss for the company. So, how are you gonna take responsibility? Mr. Johnson said. Mr. Johnson, I just wanted John to quit. I didn't think it would end up with Nora, Ms. Henderson, quitting instead. Bill tried to excuse himself. Mr. Johnson responded, Bill, it seems like you look down on your colleagues, but John is a competent employee. We were considering him to take over as manager when Nora gets promoted. But unfortunately, you are just dragging everyone down. Mr. Johnson made his decision. Bill, you're fired. Bill, pale-faced, clutched his head and fell to his knees. I had no sympathy left for him. He showed no remorse or apology towards me, only his desire to get me fired. Our beautiful and intelligent Nora Henderson would never fall for someone like you. It's totally out of the question. Get a grip, Bill, he declared. Bill couldn't say anything back, standing there trembling. Then, with a weak voice, he muttered, I understand. I'll leave the company. 6 months later, just as predicted, Ms. Henderson was promoted to director. I took over her position and became the manager with a fast-track promotion. John, you always put milk in your coffee, right? Miss Henderson, no, Nora, asked me in the break room. Yeah, always with milk. You do the same, right, Nora? I replied. At some point, we hit it off and started dating with the intention of marriage. It wasn't just a feeling of, I like her. Even though there's a 3-year age gap, we respect each other's work ethic and personality, making us the best partners. Technically, office romance is forbidden. But with the CEO's approval, since Nora and John can separate work from personal life and do their jobs well, you can date. We were openly dating without hiding it. Apparently, this was the first time in our company's history that a relationship was approved by the CEO. I braced myself for the backlash from Ms. Henderson's male fans, thinking I might face harassment again. But Max said, you and Ms. Henderson make a great couple, so no complaints here. I'll support you both. And the rest of the employees were in a celebratory mood. Recently, we had a business meeting with Mr. Aiden of Aiden Inc. During the meeting, I asked, did you hear anything about SF Corporation from our former employee Bill? Mr. Aiden, with a serious face, replied, I don't know any company by that name. Did something happen? It seemed like he genuinely didn't know anything. So Bill hadn't told Mr. Aiden anything. Maybe he had some conscience after all. But then again, considering he tried to frame me, I doubted he had any conscience. Max ran into Bill in town recently and heard that he's working diligently in a factory, doing tasks without much human interaction. I believe he's living a sincere life. As for me, I need to be a competent man, so I don't get left behind by my future wife Nora at work. I decided to keep putting in steady effort every day and continue to improve myself. Feeling happy that I can work hard for someone important to me, I motivated myself with a determined, "all right," and got back to work.